Your first actionable step is to implement something very quickly, which is going to increase your focus whilst you learn from this. And the easiest strategy to do this is to simply just make this video full screen. You don't need to go and scroll to the comments and look at the suggested videos or see the views or anything like that. Make this video completely full screen right here, right now. And one final point, stare directly into my eyes as I talk to you. What is a flow state? You've probably heard of athletes talk about being in the zone. You hear them say things like, oh, I got into the zone and that's when I started to score all the points. You got to get your mind in the zone. Athletes have known this for a very long time. Being in the zone means getting into a flow state. And this means it's like a specific period of time where your brain just has no irrelevant thought and you merge into the task that you're doing. This means that whilst you do a certain task, you're not thinking about memories from from high school. You're not thinking about irrelevant thoughts and a to-do list of what you're going to do after this. You're literally so immersed into the activity that you almost merge into it yourself. And as we discover in this guide, which this is going to make you feel really enlightened, this is the peak human experience. When you learn how to consistently get into a flow state, you're going to realize that this was the secret to happiness all along. How many times have you spoke to your mother and you can see that her brain's just mind wandering with your friends and they've got their phones in their hand and you see their eyesight gloss down when they start typing away whilst you talk to them? It's like most people are honestly like socially disabled these days. Like they genuinely, honestly, it feels like most people have got special needs when you speak to them. It really does, right? Like their brain, especially young people, their brain just like goes, like they start twitching and doing like some TikTok dance out of nowhere. It's just strange when you speak to someone because they're not in a flow state, because their mind's wandering. And honestly, you're probably one of these people. And so when your mother's telling you a story of like her childhood, she actually feels like you're listening to her. And when your friend is opening up to you and you're actually in a flow state listening to him and you're not thinking of something irrelevant, you're not waiting to jump in with something you're saying, and he's able to express, that he's going through a hard time, you being in a flow state might have just saved his life. We don't acknowledge how the mind works. When you wake up and you go to the bathroom first thing in the morning and you brush your teeth, that was only 5 minutes long. But you got 100 negative, upsetting thoughts, didn't you? You go and eat something, but you're not really focused on the food. You're thinking about high school. You're thinking about that person. You're thinking about your boss. You're thinking about the fact that you hate your life, that you reset your nofap streak, that you're lonely, that you don't have a girlfriend. That, that girl that you were messaging has not replied and now you're feeling anxious about it. A wandering mind is an unhappy mind. And most of us spend all of our time with a mind that's thinking about high school, remembering memories, and just all around just regurgitating negative, hateful, horrible thoughts. What's the cure to this? Focusing. Working. People in work are always the happiest. When there's studies done, the same kind of modern day study where they send a notification to their phone to see how happy they are and what they're currently doing. Still to this day, people are in more flow states in work than they are in their leisure time. So in your free time, all of us want more free time, right? In our free time is when we are actually the most depressed because our mind has nothing to focus on. There's an entrepreneur that I really like that I've learned a lot from. His name's Alex Becker. And when I was learning from him in my early days of business, he kept on saying the same thing where he said like the material success won't make you happy. The happiest you'll ever be is when you can get to like work hard on a project that means a lot to you. And it sounded like this sort of woo-woo BS, but I'm beginning to understand it a lot more. If your mind is not focused on a task that means a lot to you, you will experience symptoms of depression. This is the time when you're genuinely going to be the happiest, even though you think it's going to be at home when you're scrolling on your phone. We need to destroy this anti-work culture. Understand that, yeah, a lot of jobs are absolutely trash and we should try to get out of them. But we should understand that work and doing things and putting your mind to focus is fantastic. Sitting around wanting idle time, leisure time, free time, and not doing anything. A lot of young entrepreneurs' desire is like to try and make a lot of money so that they can go sit in a beach in Thailand and just kind of like sit there for a while and go, whew, now this is the life with a pina colada, bro. I've done it. I've done it. It's less fun than just being at home and just working on something that means a lot to you. Your life is only built up of the experience that your mind perceives. And so if the experience is boring, your mind's automatically going to start just wandering, and a wandering mind is an unhappy mind, no matter if you're sat on the beach in Thailand or the cafe. I've done it all, and I'm telling you from that side. But when your mind is focused on a task, here you are sat at your computer, and you can really get into a flow state there for hours a day. You can't help but not be like super happy and focused, and there's no little demons in your mind. That's what we should strive for. Like, how badly do you want 2 million subscribers? I've got it. It changes nothing in your life. If my day was filled up of tasks that I didn't like because I had this many subscribers, I would genuinely have a worse life now than 2 years ago when I had none. Every millionaire, every guy who's made money, who's actually made money and not lying about it, will tell you the same thing. It's like you wake up and life's just exactly the same. Nothing has changed, but just what you spend your time doing. And yet we keep chasing the material desires. You're not going to just stop wanting to get higher grades just because I've said this to you, right? And so this is, in a weird way, this is like an average person's level of ambition. I want to get the material success. You know what's very interesting? The biggest, especially male influencers of today, they're all right here. You see these guys who are showing this material success, the external results, and that's what they live their lives for. Here they are just running on the hamster wheel inside of the matrix that they so fight against. I record one video. It felt like nothing because I've got no thoughts in my mind. I record the second video, the third video, the fourth video, the fifth video, the sixth video, the seventh video. I'm taken aback when I'm transferring the files over. I have recorded 7 videos and it's still the morning time. That's when it hits me of how powerful getting into a flow state can be. But on this day, as I'm transferring over these 7 video files that I've recorded before like noon, I'm realizing like I have just achieved what I thought was an exaggeration. I have done a week's worth of work whilst it's still the morning time. Getting into a flow state will genuinely not just make you 1 or 2 times better. It'll make you more like 10 to 100 times better than your competition. And you know what's interesting? If you're 10 times better than the competition, you don't get 10 times the results. You get more like 1,000 to 10,000 to 100,000 times more results. So if you are externally motivated, focusing internally is the way to do it. Because who's the fastest man alive? What's his name? You know him, right? Usain Bolt. Who's the second fastest man alive? Nobody fucking knows. Nobody knows. All glory goes to number 1. The second guy who was 0.01 seconds slower. You can visualize like some 100-meter sprint. You can almost visualize them, right? The winner's there. He's just won. He's got the tape around him, and he's just ran through it. The other guy is literally right behind him, genuinely like just the smallest amount behind him. Nobody knows he exists. Nobody knows number 2's name. Usain Bolt gets genuinely 1,000 to 10,000 to 100,000 times more material success than the guy behind him. The flow state is your competitive advantage. And by the way, flow state, focus, productivity, mindset, business models, all of these things we teach inside of my online community. It's called Adonis School. It's the top link in the description. You can go there right now to see. It's the only product that I sell, and I think it's really good. So you can just go check that out if you want. Flow blockers are things that will stop you from being able to get into a flow state. And I believe that the worst one is simply just thoughts and memories. I want you to understand how to focus. You might think that focusing is when you have 0 thoughts in your mind, and that if you get a thought, it's a bad thing. Not exactly. So when you want to get into a flow state, you will notice thoughts and memories and everything start to appear in your mind. That's okay. As soon as you hear those thoughts, simply just refocus back onto the thing that you were doing. Another flow blocker can be other people. You could be trying to study or to work, and then your parents interrupt you. And I always say with this, we've got to be a little bit empathetic. It's like, we live in the house with other people that they have their own needs, and sometimes it's hard for us to convey that we might need like this empty space and quiet for us to be able to pursue our goals. If you're finding your focus being disturbed by other people, family, friends, whatever it is, effectively communicate and just tell them, like, for this period of time, for the next 1 or 2 hours, I'd like to just focus as much as possible. So please just try, like, if you to not need me for this time. Before I sit down to record any video like this, I go around every room of my house and I go tell every family member I'm about to go record for like 2 hours, just because it helps them know, because there's been a bunch of times I've just grabbed my camera, started recording, and before I know it, my dad's like hammering something in the wall or something, my mom's cooking and she's being loud with the pots, and I almost get pissed off. Like, it's normal to think like, oh come on, I'm trying to do some work and everyone's making noise. But let's be honest, like, did you tell them? You might have another flow blocker, which is task switching. You've heard so much online about like multitasking is really bad for you. This is what so many students and young people have problems with. There's a task that you're trying to do, like this big task, right? Let's say you're an affiliate marketer, like this business model, and you're editing a bunch of clips to, you're going to be posting this content, right? You're editing these clips, but it feels quite daunting. It's quite hard. It's quite like strenuous. And before you know it, you click on Discord. Before you know it, you're thinking, oh, you know what? Oh yeah, I should go change my TikTok bio to this other thing. And you keep switching tasks like this, and you remember the email that you had to reply to. Oh, I'm just gonna go check this other thing. What's actually happening is that you're building up to achieving flow. And because it just feels kind of hard right now, you just reset the progress instead of just sticking with it being hard. Now, getting into flow is supposed to be hard, but too many people will feel that strenuous feeling and then just go jump to like a different task. So this is what I do, which you can copy. When I'm about to get into like, a flow state to go, here is the task that I really want to focus on. I already know that I'm not going to like do any other task during this time. I'm not going to stop this recording to quickly go reply to an email. That would be absurd, right? But it's the same thing when you have a task like studying, and then you stop studying to reply to someone, or you stop studying to quickly go do something else, to go make a cup of coffee halfway through, or to go check some emails quickly and reply to this message and everything. And the two flow blockers that I find most interesting, diet and sleep. These are the two biggest killers to your productivity. Most people don't talk about it. The single greatest productivity tactic out there is intermittent fasting. By hands down, no matter what productivity tactic, guru, whatever, intermittent fasting is the single greatest tactic you could ever find. No one can challenge me on that. 100% fact. Your diet plays a huge part. If you're eating carbs, I'll destroy you. But for most people, when they eat carbs or junk food or sugar, it makes you feel quite weak, lethargic, brain fog. Most people don't even know how well they could work, You might have remembered those times when, you've woken up a bit earlier to do some work in some day, to study or whatever, and your brain was quite sharp on those moments. It wasn't because you woke up early. It was because you hadn't ate any of your meals yet. You genuinely don't know how good your brain can be. You don't know. If you go and experiment with this, just for 24 hours, don't eat any carbs. You can eat meat, you can eat nuts, you can eat eggs and butter and stuff, fine. Keto's fine, carnivore's even better. You'll be so surprised that your brain is genuinely like 2 times as good as it usually is. And sleep is the same thing. The amount of students who literally will sacrifice their sleep to study more, you can destroy them. Literally, they're your competition. Like they'll go to bed late to just study more, which is like the complete like idiotic mindset. And you might be one of these students, right? Poor sleep is of course a flow blocker. And the final one is technology. Technology, notifications, distractions with your phone and your computer is probably one of the worst flow blockers out there. Let me tell you what my technology looks like. Everything is on airplane mode, unless I'm currently using it, and when I'm done using it, I put it back on airplane mode. That's not an exaggeration. My laptop, Wi-Fi's off, Bluetooth's off, everything. My phone, airplane mode. If I need to use my phone for something, I'll personally turn off airplane mode, use it for what I need, put airplane mode back on. My phone is always on silent, do not disturb, and I've disabled all the notifications so I don't see anything on the screen. And I've disabled what's called rise to wake, which means that like when you pick your phone up, most people's screen just turns on. My screen only turns on if I press the power button, so it's very like focused. This seems really extreme. I don't think so. It takes 2 minutes to set up and suddenly I'm literally like 50% more productive. That's my benefit. Please, like, love yourself. Your attention is worth more than these fucking stupid and annoying notifications. Put your phone on black and white. Close the email, the browsers, delete just stop using the shit that's stripping your life away from you. I can't believe there's so many young people literally just have this amount of distractions. And it'd be easy for me to rile you up and say, you know what, this is the problem with the modern world. It's all distraction. No, fuck you, because I'm able to overcome this. So why don't you? I disable the notifications and life is absolutely fine. My phone's been on Do Not Disturb for years, so why can't you just do it? You can set it all up today, right here, right now, as I'm saying these words. Do Not Disturb, silent mode, disable notifications, put your phone on grayscale, check your PC as well, turn all that shit off. We need to prepare for work just like we would warm up before a massive workout in the gym. The setup, the preparation for the flow state work is incredibly high ROI. Because think of the two extreme guys and how they work. Let's say Jeffrey has no preparation whatsoever. He doesn't even study flow state. He wakes up, he knows he should do the very important task today, like studying. And he keeps pushing it off, pushing it off, pushing it off. Yeah, I'll study today, I'll study today. Oh yeah, I'll go at 5 p.m. Okay, I'll go at, I'll go at 6 p.m, 7 p.m. Yeah, I'll do it at 9 p.m, I'll do a little bit there. If he does ever sit down to do any work, he's going to be so unprepared. He's going to like feel brain fog. His diet's been poor. He's going to look through the work and it's going to feel too hard for him to make any progress. Whereas Adonis is going to prepare beforehand. Adonis is just like the best students out there who minimize the flow blockers to begin with. He already has a good diet. He already sleeps well. He's already got his notifications on his phone disabled. His phone's on silent. Then he starts to prepare for his work bout, following like a step-by-step protocol that kind of gets him into a ritual to begin work. You've probably heard of like athletes who do this. All of these top-level athletes usually have like a specific ritual that they do. I heard that from Michael Phelps, the famous swimmer. It's like, he listens to the same 8-minute song, he does the same exact stretch, then he goes up and he stands this way, and he goes left foot first, right foot. They've all got a ritual so that they can be as deep into flow as possible. And then there's Jeffrey trying to imitate Michael Phelps, and he's got like clicky knees and his feet are all flat and all fucked up, and here he is thinking about what he's going to eat after this. So this is exactly what you do to prepare for the flow state work bout. You might want to write this down. Number one, you have to clarify exactly what task it is that you're going to do. Too many students especially have a problem with this. They'll just say, yeah, I'll study tomorrow. It's not good enough. We need to know the specific task. So it's not just studying, it's like revising for question 3. It's practicing the exam papers for this module. It's something very specific that makes it clear. For example, for a YouTuber, it's like record the flow state video. Imagine if I just said like, yeah, I'll work tomorrow at 9 a.m. That would be me being like an asshole to my future self, because if that's me saying like, yeah, future self, you figure it out. I'm not going to plan for you. You figure it out tomorrow when you are ready to work. You need to go spend a few minutes to figure out what the task will be. I'm not going to plan it for you. Whereas if I have respect for myself, I'll sit here thinking, okay, what task should I prepare my future me to do tomorrow? I'll record this exact video. I'll script this exact video. I'll get into a meeting with this exact person. And you want to know a secret? Most people don't even do this. Most people, it's like so vague for them what they're going to do tomorrow. And so when they do wake up, they're just trying to figure out what to do. And the time, the hours start passing by before they know it. It's 11 a.m., it's 12, it's 1 p.m. They're thinking, okay, yeah, I'll study, I'll go to the gym and stuff. And before they know it, they've missed another day of their schedule. Here's your actionable step for this part of the video. Have a step-by-step checklist or sort of bullet points of what your work preparation could be. So it could be like 5 things you're going to check off before you even go and work. So for example, it could be a cold shower, it could be meditation, it could be having water ready, it could be even having like coffee ready. At this point, if you've made coffee, down it all. It's way better than sipping it nicely because it tastes nice over time. Down it all so you get the caffeine effect. Step 3.1, starting the work. Start the task with the intention of staying focused and we want to get into a flow state. Immediately your monkey brain will start to think of thoughts or memories or anything just irrelevant. And it's so important that as soon as you become aware of that, you don't get upset at yourself. You just refocus back on the task that you're doing. Doing this feels painful. This feels like a trudge. This is like the first stage of getting into a flow cycle. It almost feels like you're trudging through snow. It's like heavy snow up to your waist and it's very slow and you're taking one step and you're kind of falling and your mind keeps going off. It feels physically kind of agitating to be here. It's quite hard. You want to go click off. You've got 10 ideas of other things you could go and do right now. As long as you keep trudging, keep fighting, you will get into a flow state. It's the repetition of becoming aware that your mind has wandered and then just simply bringing it back to the task that you're doing. Once you've repeated that process about 50 times, that's when you'll click into a flow state. Imagine we've just done a brilliant workout. What should we do after that? We should rest. We should take it easy. We should do something that feels completely different. And yet most people will do this mental workout and then straight away overtrain by like checking their phone notifications, message, this person, okay, YouTube video, everything. Allow your brain some time to rest. Maybe the single greatest thing you could do is go for a nap. Literally just close, your blinds, wear the sleep mask if you have one. Close your eyes for like 10 minutes, 20 minutes. get up and then get ready for the next flow state again. And like, you could just grind that out if you wanted. Another thing is having the right level of challenge. To get into a flow state, the task that you're doing needs to be at the right level of a challenge for your current skills. So this is very similar to progressive overload. If we take you into the gym and you're used to doing 80 kg bench press, today we could challenge you and say, okay, try and hit 82.5 kg. And if we hype you up for it, because that's still like, you know, all gym goers know this, even though that's only 2.5 kg, it can be kind of hard to hit that as like a new PR for the day, right? But let's say we hype you up for it and you get into a flow state because you're thinking, okay, 82.5 kg, that's what I'm going to hit today. I'm really going to try my best to hit that, right? Then you might do. But if, for example, we took you into the gym today, your usual bench press weight is 80 kg, and I said, oh, nah, do 100 kg, bro, and do it for reps as well. The challenges went so high relative to your skill. You know exactly what would happen if I force you to do 100 kg bench press. You'd start overthinking. You'd lose the flow of the workout. You'd lose your focus because you'd be thinking, oh no, I can't. No, it's gonna mess up my routine. No, you know, I had the plan for doing this. I was gonna increase it by 2.5. Suddenly, before you know it, you're just completely distracted. So don't be like the beginner who comes in and tries to increase the weight that he uses in the gym by too much. Be the smart guy who just increases it very, very slightly over a long time. It's really easy to understand when we're talking about the weight that you lift in the gym because it's all numerical. When it comes to like actually the tasks that you do, it's kind of hard because how do you keep that to the right level? For example, how do I as a YouTuber make sure that recording a video like this is at the right level for me? Do you just like keep recording longer and longer and longer videos? You know, my videos are quite long right now, but I'm not doing that for the purpose of like flow states, just because I think that these longer videos serve more education. The way that I make sure that the challenge is always up to my skill level is I keep the challenge exactly the same, but I keep leveling up my skills through, for example, reading books and implementing them and getting advice and, you know, setting intentions to like level up one little bit. So maybe I'll look at like the camera more often tomorrow. Maybe I'll read a book on storytelling and I'll try and tell a better story. You keep the challenge the same whilst your skills go up to the point that it feels kind of boring to like do the task because it just feels kind of easy. So when, for example, recording feels like something that I don't even have to think much of, it feels kind of boring and you know, plain and mundane. That usually means that I need to increase the challenge. So maybe I stay vigilant and speak in a way that would be more concise so that the video performs better, like I'm doing in this video. That's the challenge that I've set myself. You don't want to overwhelm yourself, but at the same time, you don't want to stay underneath your capabilities. You can also make your tasks more like a game. So a very simple game you could have if you're an author and you're writing a book on like Google Doc or something. Just look at the word count and see that as your score. So your word count right now is like 1,500 words, and it's almost like a score to think, okay, I'm gonna get to 2,500 of my score, like the high score today. Oh, I wrote 1,500 words. That's like 1,500 points in this game. It's like a high score for me. And this makes you more likely to get into a flow state because it kind of triggers like the deep intrinsic motivation and enjoyment in the task. You can even use something as specific as your vision to help you focus and get into more flow states. I've mentioned a few times in this full guide that when I really want to focus, I'll almost squint my eyes like this in a bit of like an angry way. The reason why is because I've watched a Andrew Huberman podcast where he talks about literally like narrowing your eyes, not blinking, and like staring at a very specific small dot that you're like, you know, it's a part of your task. So for me, I'm looking into like right into the camera lens, like right there. When you're scripting or you're writing something, you might look at like the most like latest sentence that's being put onto the screen. When you're studying, you might look at like each word that you're currently reading. If you narrow in your vision, usually it narrows in your thoughts as well. Likewise, if you've hiked up mountains recently, you'll know this. If you go to a place where your vision broadens out, so for example, you're on a mountain and you can see for like miles away from you, usually your thinking starts to broaden out and you start to have these very deep, big, high-level thoughts and desires. So for this actionable step, choose one small part of this video that you can see of mine that you're just gonna stare at with like a squinted eye for the next like 5 to 20 seconds. Maybe like the tip of my mustache here, maybe my my left eyeball here. Stare like with a squint of your eye, and you're gonna force yourself to focus more than usual. Step 5.1, why relationships get boring. This is exactly what happens, and you can clarify me if I'm wrong, but you meet this girl, and things are super, super exciting. You actually get butterflies on the thought of like meeting her in person or calling for the first time. You're shaking, right? That means that the challenge for this task is actually quite high. But with the girl that you end up attracting, usually that means that your skill was at the right level. So the challenge, the sort of difficulty of this situation was high, but your skill level was high. You meet her for another date, it's the same thing. Eventually you have sex and it feels like, you know, it's really perfectly on level like this. Soon you've been in the relationship for 3 months, for 6 months, she's smelt your poop 50 times. The challenge has dropped. but your skill level is still here. This is why relationships feel kind of boring, because your skill's too good for it. This is kind of like playing level 1 on a video game, but just forever. Most couples are the equivalent of that. They're literally just playing like this beginner's game, even though they've got higher skills. So when the challenge and difficulty is very low, but your skill is higher, it results in boredom. You can imagine this, right? Imagine playing a video game that's too easy and then being forced to just play the same level over and over and over again. You'd get bored. You'd want to cheat. You'd want to go play a different video game. Now imagine if you made a pact with this original video game that you would only play that one and none more. You would cheat. Or you'd be tempted to every single day, thinking, why the fuck is your relationship so boring when all those other games look so much more fun, right? So how do we fix this? How do we fix the big problem of relationships getting so boring? We need to just increase the challenge level, the difficulty level. This is our skills, this is the challenge, the difficulty. Naturally, when we spend time with someone, the challenge starts going down because we get used to them, and our skill goes higher because, you know, we start learning more things about relationships and our ability to express ourselves and to partner up and everything, right? So we're here. We start feeling bored. This is where most couples will live for their entire lives. But the couples who know about flow state will be constantly thinking to themselves, how do we increase challenge and difficulty in our relationship? Conversations are a place that we can increase the challenge and difficulty in the relationships. Here's our current conversational skill, our current skill in relationships. Here's where we are. This is where our conversations are. You know that I've seen some studies that show, like, very sad facts, that the average couple, like 30-year-old, middle-aged somewhat couples, they literally have like 40 minutes of quality conversation a week. Most of their conversation is just like logistics. It's all just like, oh yeah, what are you gonna do today at 5 p.m? Yeah, I'll go to this place, then I'll come, you know, it's just boring stuff. They're not even like expanding their consciousness together. The couples who are on track to become like really loving and they understand flow state, what they'll do is they'll realize their skill's really high, so they'll say, okay, well, how can we use our skill? Let's ask each other harder questions. Let's explore the depths of each other's minds, because that's super, super interesting. So one person in the couple looks to the other one and says, what are you most afraid of? And the challenge goes up. And that one answers, and then they ask back, okay, so what are you most afraid of? That one goes up. What's the worst thing that ever happened to you as a child? Now you see, like, we're making the relationship, the conversations a little bit more difficult compared to the mundane, usual conversations that people get into. And suddenly we're at our skill level. And, you know, you can go too far. You can maybe ask a question that's like super triggering or, you know, personal or something, and you maybe aren't that close in the, like, enough in the relationship to deal with that, and your skill is like, you know, below that. Fair enough. But by asking these deep questions, these random things that you just want to almost pick the brain, like explore the brain of your partner, it makes your experience with them more complex. Your actionable step, and do this right now, is to write down 3 open-ended, deep questions that you can ask anyone that you love. So maybe it's your girlfriend, maybe it's your mother, maybe it's your brother. Some kind of like deep question that would help you explore the depths of their mind. I know that I can just give you some ideas, but I'm not going to. I want you to really think about the person who you'd ask this question to, and just ask yourself, like, authentically, what would I actually kind of like to know about them? What don't I know about them already? Making love, not just like basic sex that you've heard of, that you've seen on porn, or, you know, that you might have had with your girlfriend already. You go from having normal sex to having sex where you focus on like merging together and kind of almost imagining that you're one person, that you've combined as a whole. And the way that you start this, I can't tell you advanced tactics, but I can tell you the way to start, which is super interesting. And it is to unkink some blocks that we might have to be able to make love properly. From an early age, there's been blocks placed onto our sexuality, our physical body, our emotional state, our psychology. And these things have actually made it harder for us to like genuinely be in love with our partners. So this, what I'm talking about, isn't like degeneracy. This is something that you'd want to practice with your wife, right? So that you'd really get like a strong tie to her. So even if you know you're not like a degenerate, even if you're like a strong, convicted Muslim, you'd want to watch this because you'd want to be able to practice this when the time is there. But the saddening truth is, if you've watched porn for years, you've largely lost your ability to do this. The concept of being a teenager who's watching porn, what is it? It's shy, It's dark, it's away in your room, you're not making any noises. You often you feel kind of naughty and restricted, and you feel quite shameful because you're watching other people, you're watching something you shouldn't watch, and that's a feeling of shame. And you start to associate these feelings with sexuality from a very early age. The first big tip that I can give you is to be able to breathe properly. You want to focus on really breathing so deeply so that your breath goes from your nose all the way down as low as possible, down the front of your body towards literally your genitals. We need to be taking much deeper breaths than we currently are. These shallow little half breaths where our stomach doesn't even rise are very problematic. This is very interesting, right? So the book that I use is my guidebook to life, The Way of the Superior Man. There's a passage in there which says, the principal bodily key of mastering the world and women is to maintain a full and open front of the body, and you do this by breathing fully. Think about that. The principal bodily key, the main thing we can do with our body is to be able to just be open in the front of our bodies, and we do that with our breath. State, which is that the challenge and the skill needs to be at the right level. If the challenge is too low, you're not going to grow. If the challenge is too high and you've got this sort of egotistical arrogance kind of mindset, I'm going to go run a marathon every single day, David Goggins and everything, then you end up not even if you do complete it, which is unlikely, you end up not actually learning the lesson you were supposed to. This book, again, The Way the Superior Man, mentions that you do this out of the exact same reason why you keep the challenge too low. It's all out of fear. Fear is what causes us to act in a way that isn't for our best interests. You fear being a loser, and so you set the challenge of whatever you're trying to do too high. You fear pushing yourself too hard, and so the challenge is too low. I've spoke a lot about the concept of finding your purpose as a young masculine man, and that's what I've learned from The Way of the Superior Man. It seems to me that the way you can find your purpose is by feeling out a bunch of different tasks and finding which ones you naturally have quite a lot of intrinsic enjoyment for. So flow has all been about the specific task that you're kind of intrinsically pulled towards, that dissolves you of thoughts, and you're not doing it for the external results. And so it seems to find your purpose, you just need to go and find which tasks or jobs or responsibilities kind of put you into a flow state. And that might be a great way to find what you're actually supposed to do to free your soul. I've got multiple guides on purpose on my channel, so you can just go search on YouTube Hamza Purpose if you want to learn more about that. From what I'm hearing about these books on masculine spirituality, it seems to me that if you're not going to live your life totally obsessed about your purpose, there's no point in living at all. And once you understand that, your jaw will drop and you'll realize that you've wasted decades of your life. But keep setting these task intentions to make the state, the sort of block of work, slightly better each time. You need to have this slight level of challenge increase, just like the weightlifter goes to the gym and brings the little plates with him, and he increases it by 0.5 kilograms every single week or every 2 weeks. That's what we need to have with our flow state. We can never just let our work, our life, our fitness and diet and everything like that just kind of maintain, because that's where boredom comes from. You need to keep following the flow state rules and not get very egotistical to think that you don't need this anymore. This is almost a message to my younger self, because at least for me, I often get very obsessed with a concept and I really go all in on it, and it feels really super important, but then I get distracted because I'm watching other YouTube videos and everything, and before a week or 2 weeks, it's almost I've forgotten the whole thing that I was so obsessed with to begin with. This seems a really important, not just for the real world benefit of doing more work, but for the discovery of who you are as a person and all those spiritual benefits. So it seems to me that this is something that's worth prioritizing. This is something that's worth scheduling. This is something that's worth sort of forming into your identity. I am a guy who regularly gets into a flow state, that any task that you're doing, no matter what it is, you're brushing your teeth, you're eating, you're cooking, you're working on the business, or you're in the gym, you're constantly reminding yourself of that concept of my mind is going to wander. All I need to do is just bring it back to this present moment. Your experience of life is all down to your own mental perception. It's all down to whether or not you can get into a flow state today, whether or not you feel like you're doing something important. Don't trade those wholesome spiritual things just because you see another influencer talking about his fancy car or his watch, or this guy saying that you should live this lifestyle. If you can live authentically to yourself, then you can live a very good life. If you have got this far in this huge full guide and you really love to learn and you want to level up and become like an even better man of character, and you want to start getting into like the way of the superior man, and you want to start training like a Spartan, and you want to think like a Stoic, Adonis School is literally the perfect place for you. That's the top link in the description. I really think you should go check it out.